Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. You know, if you're the kind of focused learner who just loves breaking down exactly how information is structured and delivered in our modern world, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're doing something a little bit different, but honestly, it is incredibly fascinating. We aren't looking at a massive scientific study or some sprawling historical tome. Nope. Instead, we are going to deconstruct a single, highly charged piece of digital metadata. We're going to see exactly how ancient history is packaged, optimized, and presented for the internet age. Okay. Let's dive into this. So think about this for a second. What actually makes a millennia-old story shocking? It's kind of a paradox, isn't it? When we think of ancient sacred texts or deep historical records, we usually think of reverence, antiquity, maybe established tradition. But the modern digital space? Yeah, it operates on a completely different frequency. It demands our immediate attention. It requires this mystery box arc, where a gap in our knowledge is suddenly ripped open, making us feel this urgent, almost physical need to click, to watch, and to resolve that tension. Today, we're analyzing exactly how creators take something so ancient and reframe it into an absolutely irresistible digital hook. Here is the exact unedited source text we're analyzing today. Take a quick second to read that over. AISA, the shocking truth about Pharaoh's wife, Quranic story. On the surface, sure, it's just a title for a piece of media. But when you look closely, this single, fully capitalized sentence contains multitudes of deliberate, incredibly smart framing techniques. Literally every single word, and even the punctuation. You see those vertical pipes separating the phrases? All of it is working overtime to trigger a very specific psychological response in you, the viewer. To truly understand how this works, we need a bit of a roadmap. So here's the logical flow we're going to use to break down this text. First, we'll isolate the who, which is our subject. Then, the why we should click, which is the hook. Next, the religious context grounding the whole thing. And finally, the publisher behind it all. Let's see how this all builds together. We start with the very first word of our source material, just a name, Asya. Now, from an informational standpoint, leading with a single personal name is a serious power move. It instantly centers the subject as an individual, a true protagonist in her own right. But strategically, placing this word first is like a beacon for a very specific audience. Because if you already know who Asya is from Islamic tradition, you instantly recognize the subject. It creates this immediate sense of in-group familiarity. You don't even need the rest of the title to know what the story's about. That single word has already captured your interest. But what if you don't know the name Asya? Well, the creator accounts for this immediately with the next phrase, Pharaoh's wife. This is what we call a relational title. It completely broadens the appeal outward. Suddenly, even if you have absolutely no background in the specific religious tradition, you have immediate historical and cultural context. I mean, everyone knows the archetype of the pharaoh, right? The ancient Egyptian ruler, the massive pyramids, those sweeping historical epics. By tying her personal name to this globally recognized historical archetype, the creator ensures literally nobody is left out of the narrative loop. So, on one hand, we have Asya, right? A simple, intimate, personal identifier. And on the other, we have Pharaoh's wife, which carries all this grand historical weight and structural power. And this brilliantly illustrates how a well-crafted title casts a really wide net. It is speaking to two entirely different audiences at the exact same time. It's successfully capturing both the informed religious viewer looking for a specific narrative and the general history enthusiast who just loves a good ancient Egyptian drama. And now we hit the accelerator. Sandwiched right in the middle of our title is this absolute powerhouse of a phrase, the shocking truth. This is where the pacing shifts dramatically. I mean, think about it. This isn't historical language. It certainly isn't theological language. This is aggressive, mystery-driven, digital age, internet language. It implies that everything you thought you knew might be dead wrong, or that there's some big secret being kept from you. It introduces tension. Why would a creator use such sensational, almost clickbaity language for a religious figure? Well, because in today's digital economy, capturing attention is just as vital as the information itself. Now, what's really interesting about this is the intense friction between these two worlds. On one side, you have traditional historical accounts, which are typically given very sober academic labels. And on the other, you have the modern, sensation-driven internet hook that is basically required to survive our current media ecosystem. Like a traditional book might just be titled The Life of Asya. But on the internet, competing against millions of other pieces of media, survival often dictates using a label like The Shocking Truth just to break through all that noise and compel a click. But right as the title reaches absolute peak sensationalism, it pulls us right back down to earth with the final block, Quranic story. This is honestly a masterstroke in structural framing. After hyping up a shocking truth, this phrase completely pivots the viewer. It rips the story right out of the realm of modern gossip or wild internet conspiracy theories, and it anchors it firmly back into a formal, structured religious context. Let's be really clear about what this label achieves mechanically. By defining this as a Quranic story, which is a narrative framed as originating from Islamic tradition and the text of the Quran, the creator is establishing real authority. They are setting strict boundaries and expectations about the source of the truth being promised. It's basically telling the viewer, yes, we promised you something shocking, but rest assured it is a truth derived from respected, canonical scripture. It perfectly balances that sensational internet hook with real academic and religious credibility. And finally, we have to look at the source of this packaging. The copyright belongs to Religious Story TV. Now, maintaining our strict, neutral, analytical stance here, it is just so important to see exactly who is framing this narrative. Because this isn't just organic history floating around in the ether, it is a product. It's carefully assembled by a specific publisher who owns the rights to this particular presentation. Even the name of the channel itself, Religious Story TV, perfectly mirrors the exact formula we just analyzed. It combines the sacred, religious story, with modern media broadcast, TV. So the crucial point is that this wasn't just some random string of words thrown together. Not at all. It was a highly calibrated linguistic formula. Look at this digital strategy broken down. First, you center the historical figure to grab the in-group. Second, you promise a shocking revelation to capture the curious masses. And third, you anchor the whole thing in scripture to maintain authority and credibility. In just 9 words, Religious Story TV managed to check every single box required to optimize ancient history for a modern digital audience. It is just an incredibly efficient piece of communication. Which brings us to our final thought. Now that you've seen the underlying anatomy of exactly how this works, we have to ask, how do dramatic titles change the way we actually consume ancient religious stories? When we dress up millennia-old texts in the language of modern mystery and shock, does it fundamentally change what we take away from the story itself? It's such a fascinating lens through which to view the media we consume every single day. So the next time you click on an explainer or an article about history, take a moment, just read the title. See if you can spot the strategy working behind the words. Thanks so much for learning with me today.